So we're joined today by Ella Jade, a great friend of mine. Ella is now the co-founder and CEO of Ruba. British Vogue have called this the ultimate destination for luxury affordable furniture. And Ella is also being called by the British press the new face of interior design. And you've also been in the interior design industry and have had your own showrooms and a furniture brand. And so would love to talk about the entrepreneurial journey and how you've gone from that now to running your own company.
Absolutely.
So thanks for being on the show, Ella. How are you?
Thank you, Zain. I'm absolutely fine. How are you? Across the globe.
I'm doing great. As I just said, I've moved into a new apartment and I'm just trying to figure out how to get this place furnished. And it's just opened my eyes to all the problems that exist. And let's start there, really. So why are you the face of, or the new face of interior design? What does that actually mean?
Well, I have to say that your apartment is looking amazing. So, if you need my help, but it doesn't seem like you do. It started back when I was 10 years old and I started in my family business, which was bathrooms, a bathroom company at the time. And since then, it's almost become second nature to me. So anything home related, hopefully I can be there for anyone who wants to redo their home or elevate their home in any way. So since then, we had a concession in Harrods in London. We had a few showrooms around the UK, as you mentioned. And for us, it was very much the luxury interior design at that point. So taking a home, doing a turnkey renovation of it. So from start to finish, you go through the design element, you go through the supply, the manufacture and installation, and creating that concept for those people in their home. So that's why I think people have called me that. And now we're going obviously on to something different with Ruba.
So just as a context here, why don't you explain to people what Harrods is and what it means for British culture? Because that seems to be the place everyone wants to, get into, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Harrods is like the staple in London. If you want luxury, you go to Harrods. It has always been like that. It has such a status attached to it. Obviously, it has, royal connections attached to it as well. And that's where it was almost the epitome for our brand to be able to be in there. We had a beautiful concession there where we showcased around 5 huge displays of bathrooms, and we also had accessories there. And Harrods was a beautiful place for us to be, obviously, the clientele that we could, get to know there. And Harrods was the starting point, really, of us being that luxury, the definition of luxury interior design. It was a great experience being in Harrods.
So you look at it from the perspective of the real estate industry then. How did that work with Harrods, and what other physical presence did you have?
I mean, Harrods, so we had a concession there. We paid them a commission, essentially. So instead of paying rent, you pay a commission.
Okay.
Harrods, Harrods has a name to it, right? So of course you're going to pay for that name. But in comparison to real estate and having your own showroom, well, first of all, with Harrods, you have a lot of traffic. So people walking through constantly, and you getting that easy access, I would say, to clientele. However, Harrods is also a tourist attraction. So people come from all over the world to see Harrods, and not everyone going into Harrods wants to take home a bath as a souvenir. So, you've got that balance between having those people who really wanting luxury design and having those who are literally not looking at all for a bathroom. So that's where obviously having your own showroom comes into play. And then obviously making sure that you have really the right location for it. You don't want something that's in Oxford Street, for example, in London, or Times Square potentially in New York, because it's too touristy. You need something maybe in more residential areas. So in London, it's Kensington, maybe Upper East Side or Upper West Side or whatever it is. Or California, obviously, is Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. So having the right location is obviously paramount in ensuring that you are attracting the right market.
So what type of physical presence did you have inside of Harrods and also outside of Harrods to help sell the furniture that your company was providing at the time?
So obviously in Harrods we had a 200 square foot concession on the second floor. And outside of that, at the time, we had 2 showrooms. So we had one which was near Selfridges, ironically enough, rivals, but not in Selfridges, just next to it. But it was still very much near Marylebone, which is a high residential area as well. And then we also had one in Hampstead, which is, again, a very high residential area. And that, for us, was very key in ensuring that we could place our brand in the right market. It's, look at Zara, for example, the brand Zara, they placed all of their showrooms in the right places to get the right footfall for them. That's been their growth strategy. So especially for a furniture market, that's really paramount into making sure that you have the right location.
So how did you go about thinking through locations? Did you just look for, and especially at the time, I'm not sure how much technology was available compared to today, but was it really just that, this is an area I know, there's a big brand here like Selfridges or Harrods, this is where I want to be, or was there kind of a process and a methodology behind how you chose your locations?
Well, definitely it was to do with one thing in particular. It was to do with the fact that in where we had it next to Selfridges, there's a line of, there's 2 streets which are mainly bathrooms and kitchens. So people go there specifically to access that and to go to the different showrooms along the road. Obviously, you are competing very closely with your competitors, so you have to, always be one up on them. But at the same time, you were getting that specific target market. And the same with Kensington, it was near the Chelsea Design Quarter. So everyone going there was going there for a specific reason. But I think if you don't have that in the areas that you're looking for, I would suggest looking for somewhere where you know your price point. So you're not going to be next to companies that potentially are cheaper than you or more expensive than you. You need to find that price point which is attracting the right market and the right people to your showroom. Even having potentially a mall near you or a big shopping centre, that in a sense of Selfridges, for example, had the higher to luxury end of target market that we were looking for. So on their way back from shopping, going to Louis Vuitton and going to Chanel, they stop by and they look into the windows in our showroom. And that was very much, that really did help our customers.
So when you look at the inside of the space, how did you think about the layout inside? And you only had 200 square feet to work with in Harrods too, so I don't know how much control you had. Yeah. But are there any tips or insights that you can share with how you try to maximize conversions inside the store itself?
Well, I talk about Harrods and I also talk about the Kensington showroom that we did. So in Harrods, obviously, you have red tape and regulations, but we did try and ensure that every single display was a complete one. So moving on to the Kensington one, what we did was essentially create a whole house. So we had 2 floors in the Kensington showroom, and you walked in, and as soon as you walked in, you had a full kitchen. Then you went through the dining room, living room, bedroom, and walk-in wardrobe, and as well as a bathroom. So you could essentially visualize not only every room in your house, but if you wanted, your complete house. So I always look like it with, say, the usability or the UX of a website. How do you go about that? So, can I see the products correctly? Is it easy to go around the website? Is it easy to check out? Is it easy to view the photos? It's the same for a showroom. If the customer can physically walk through the showroom and visualize their home and understand, okay, I understand, yes, I like that. That's what I can see in my own home. You're getting a conversion rate much quicker than if you were, for example, just stacking baths next to each other or stacking sofas next to one another. People need that visual element, especially with the home. So I think that's really, really important. And we found a lot of what people said when coming through the showroom was, thank you, because I can actually visualize my house now, rather than me going, oh my gosh, do I need this sofa, this, what matches,
So what's going on now then? So we're in the midst of a pandemic.
I know
you can only speak for the European UK sector, but how are the furniture stores doing and the furniture brands doing, especially as tenants of real estate? Are they struggling? Are they allowing people in? How has that whole experience changed?
I went along High Street recently, and unfortunately people are closing. They're closing because they haven't, not everyone, of course. If you're a big brand and you're able to sustain the losses throughout the section, then of course. But if you're a smaller brand and that's your only way of income, then they're closing because it's unfortunately they just can't, they haven't been able to reopen in time in order to sustain what they've lost. So it's tough. I think it's tough for like a lot of family businesses out there, and people who potentially don't have like the backers of in maybe another country or whatever it is. And the e-commerce, we've got to talk about e-commerce because it's taking a lot of customers away from the high street. The other thing as well is our research has shown that a lot of older generations, so our target market, for example, in Ruba is 22 to 35, 45. A lot of 50s and overs would never pre-COVID shop online. It's just not in their nature. Whereas now, during the period of lockdown, if you wanted to refurbish your home, which the majority of people have been doing because, we haven't moved, we've been staying inside, they have had no choice but to buy online. And so the trust element of them buying online has increased drastically. They now, having hopefully received their goods, understood that they can buy online. And they've also had no choice but to be forced into that. So I think the generation that didn't necessarily shop online before and would only go to stores will now continue to shop online. And so the e-commerce and the online sector has broadened, whereas people going into a physical store has decreased. So that's what's happening.
For sure, we're seeing trends with online being the biggest, benefactor of COVID. Help me understand this. I mean, just tracking a stock like Wayfair, for example, right? During the pandemic, March 20th, I'm looking at, right? The stock price has just blown up more than 10x. How is that possible? Why has a company like Wayfair done so well? And what do you have any commentary on this crazy growth, and is it sustainable, and why is it up so much?
I mean,
to this level, 10x is crazy.
It's crazy. You're right. Wayfair. We all gotta love Wayfair. So in I think it was the Q1 of 2020, they had huge losses, and they were increasing advertising. So they had high expenditure. So they didn't have, a great time then. But since the onset of COVID, what's happened is essentially, well, first of all, people have been, as you said, forced online. And second of all, people have been wanting to redo their homes. So forced online, redo their homes. Obviously, Wayfair is a brand that people know, they go there. But the other thing as well is when the start of COVID happened, Amazon was only selling essential items. So they pulled back a lot of the things. So for example, sofas and chairs and everything like that. And so people had no choice who, obviously they trust Amazon. Wayfair is obviously out there in terms of brand, but then from Amazon, they went to Wayfair. And so they were getting new customers in. And Wayfair has always been the company that's retained customers, but they have had struggled with gaining new ones. So over the time of COVID, they've retained it, but because of Amazon, they've also gained new ones. So that's why the stocks have increased drastically, and obviously that's where they are now.
So what does this mean for a company like Amazon? Is Amazon ceding ground of the online furniture market to Wayfair, and Wayfair is going to be what's now associated as one of the premier brands? Of course, Ruba wants to also be there too, and we'll talk about that. What's going on with Amazon then? And is this sustainable for Wayfair?
In terms of, Amazon obviously at the start probably couldn't have a choice but to deliver essential items because of the way that their networks work. But now you're seeing that I don't think necessarily Amazon, as how big the company is ever going to, diminish in terms of their ability to be the forefront of any industry because of their delivery networks. The issue with Amazon is sofas need two-man delivery. Sofa need two people to deliver. Whereas, everyday items which people gain from Amazon, and I get Amazon all the time, one person delivers. So you see one van pull up and you've got loads of parcels coming out, and obviously, we all know that one person delivers that. But having larger items like dining tables, sofas, big dining chairs or armchairs, it needs two people. So I don't think Amazon in itself maybe, of course, they can probably do it if they want to, but at the moment, the capacity of their delivery network is not set up to be a 2-man delivery service. Whereas Wayfair obviously had that from the start because that's what they're selling. So that might be a reason as well for that.
So also, is this the end of brick and mortar furniture stores and furniture brands that are focused offline? What does the future look like for this whole segment of real estate technology and the furniture spot specifically?
I think that the physical store as it is right now potentially won't necessarily be part of the future. So if you were to go, for example, into a furniture store and see actual physical furniture lying around, potentially that's not the future. But the physical store, yes, I definitely believe, and we definitely believe at Ruba, it has a reason to be there in the future. But I think it definitely involves technology. So we're looking at VR. So, you go in and you can see you can touch the samples, but you can also see the VR element of your room and your furniture, of how they would look. And it's also taking it more of an emotional attachment to a brand. So using it more as a marketing exercise rather than just selling of products. And the other thing as well, we've got to always remember is, okay, if you have a fashion store and you've got, 100 pieces of clothing, you can put those all in a fashion store. But if you have 100 sofas in your collection, which majority of brands do because we need to have a selection for our customers, you can't put that unless you have the size of B&Q or IKEA, and that's not necessarily feasible. So you're never going to have the entire range of sofas in your showroom. So we are definitely really working on how do we bring the customer closer physically to every single piece that we have on our site without necessarily having the physical traditional route of a showroom.
Got it. So how did you get to being, the founder of an e-commerce company, Ruba, when you were physically before running showrooms and having your own furniture brand? Walk us through that journey. I'm very curious, especially, you seem very well positioned now with how the world is changing.
Well, I think it starts from that. I think when we were, starting and understanding the concept of what people were looking for, a lot of brands, not necessarily in furniture, but for example, or, in fashion, were struggling on the high street. They were struggling drastically. And I thought to myself, and I thought, my dad has been in the industry for, well, I won't say his age, but for a long time. And the concept of a store for him at that time was paramount because there was no technology. So starting from him, he had a store, and he had to have the store because of the widening area. That was the only reason he could get that. But he got the entire area. Whereas now we have stores, but we can't get the amount of people because of e-commerce. So the concept of stores back in the day were amazing because you're the only person that in that surrounding area you would get the clientele if you had that store, because there was no option of going online. Whereas now, because of the option of going online, there was too much choice. When you have high overheads in a showroom, you can't give the customers the affordable prices that they're looking for. It's just not doable because of the high overheads that you have. And so I was seeing this happening, realizing obviously that the e-commerce section is really growing, especially in furniture. Now is the time for us, especially, to be in the furniture industry online. And thinking, well, a lot of people come in the showroom and they love the designs. They are really obsessed with the designs, but they're saying it's too expensive. It's just too expensive for me. And so what I said was, okay, well, why is it too expensive? Well, of course, it's to do with the overheads that we have. And so we then decided to say, well, everyone should have beautiful design. Why not? It shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to just be at the top end of the scale to have beautiful design. So let's give it to everyone. Let's try and make this element of a beautiful design affordable so that the masses and everyone can have that in their homes.
Right. That's the same thing I encountered too. And you've always assumed, by the way, that the more you pay, the better the quality. So the first thing that came to my mind was, and this is what the showrooms would say, well, look, you could go to one of our competitors and you'll find a replica, lower cost version, and you get what you pay for. So how do we tackle that assumption? that price is a factor of quality, because you're trying to basically build luxury, affordable furniture for everyone. And the furniture in Ruba is priced even more competitively than lower quality, horrendous design furniture.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, we can be honest. Of course, when you have high overheads, you have to sustain that. And unfortunately, that sometimes goes to the customers. So that's obviously one side of it. And the second thing is, well, we don't put a high margin on it. We're very honest about that. We don't put a high margin on it because we don't believe in that. So, we're reducing our margins to ensure that the affordability to the customers is there. And back in the day, the margins for furniture were huge. Don't tell anyone, but I remember my dad used to put like 500% markup on stuff.
Wow.
So, he was like, "Oh, I'll buy it for this, double it, times it by 20, and then you got it." So, back in the day, because of the fact that no one else was selling the items, of course you're going to capitalize on that. And I think that's where the stigma for high quality but high priced furniture came from. And then obviously as we understand and we grow in terms of e-commerce, well, no, we don't need to do that. We can lower our margins so that more people can enjoy beautiful furniture.
Right. So rumors really came from the fact that people would come to your showroom. They would want all of this luxury furniture, which was marked up at a crazy amount.
Not ours, my dad's. Back in the day.
And then you wanted to make it affordable to the masses and bring that same quality.
Yes.
So that's the premise. Now, Ruba's different from how most people might expect. It's not necessarily a marketplace where you source other furniture, perhaps the way Wayfair does. Why don't you walk us through what's different about the Ruba approach?
Well, there's two folds to that. So first of all, we wanted to, as a designer, offer beautiful designs that we feel are elevated beyond, the majority of things that you can find. And we've done a lot of market research. And as a designer particularly, I always bring out new collections and I always focus on the designs to ensure that when people buy our products and people buy our designs, not only are they elevating their homes, but essentially they're bringing inspiration into their own home. I truly believe that when you wake up and you're in a beautiful home with beautiful furniture, you can start the day on a better foot. So that's the one side of it. The second side, which we're very, very passionate about, is the fact that you can shop by room. So you can shop by a style, a look. So what I've done is created designs of a full living room or a full dining room. So you can essentially shop everything in that room. And that's very different to pretty much everyone in the market at the moment. You see either people who are marketplaces or just selling pure furniture, but no one is adding the element of design and interior design, so that people who potentially find it difficult to scroll through thousands upon thousands of products in Wayfair, not understanding what would actually suit their home and not understanding what would match together, can go on our site, see a beautiful room set that they actually love and go, okay, I'll buy the lot, that's it. And obviously as we expand and we grow, our aim is to obviously say, well, you can buy everything. You can buy the plant in that room. You can buy the wallpaper. So it's literally saying, okay, done, one-stop shop. I buy the look. I'm happy. I'm done. And also it saves time.
So when it comes to your differentiation, then this supply that you have, the furniture that you have, is unique, exclusive, only available on Ruba, and unless you decide to list it on Wayfair or whatever, no one else can find it anywhere else for the same price. It's exclusively yours. So you've gone from being a designer, a brand, to now having your own platform. So you're basically having what used to be in a physical store,
Absolutely.
But now you're putting it online, open to the masses, and your learning has come from that. A, people want luxury furniture that's affordable. B, they want it curated, that specific look. Because it can be very dizzying when you go shopping for furniture online and you're overwhelmed by the choices.
Yeah, I mean...
And it's all about product placement. You're scrolling through and you get exhausted and you can't really, you've got to enlist the help of an interior designer perhaps. Yeah. So you're trying to package it all in one. Now, how do you go about trying to ensure that the look you package can fit the broadest variety of use cases possible? Because you could take one furniture and another, and most people might not appreciate that combination. You're presenting it in that way. How do you decide to do that?
Well, I mean, it comes down to, first of all, what our customers' feedback is. So we talk to a lot of customers. We do a lot of polling on our Instagrams and on our marketing. And what we say is we always want a conversation with our customers. We always like the fact that we want your input. And that's very important for us. So we'll say, for example, we'll put 2 designs up on our Instagram and we'll say, what do you prefer? They might have only one product that's different. So, it's keeping the same regularity between the other products and putting a different one in and sort of seeing, the feedback that we have from that. And so that's always really helpful. We always do get quite a good, percentage. So a lot of people will say one rather than it being sort of middle ground. So that's really helpful for us. At the same time, we always go and speak to a lot of Instagram accounts. So a lot of people that run their Instagram accounts and have their homes as their, the main focus on that. And we go and we sort of say, well, what are you looking for now? And obviously it's quite obvious from the photos, essentially, how they've done their homes. So, greys and creams as their color scheme is absolutely paramount in the UK. It's like, people absolutely love it. So it's understanding that. And then from then on, we then go, okay, so this is what we created. And, at the moment, we're having really beautiful feedback. At the same time, though, what we do say under the photos, if you don't like all of the products on it, we do give other suggestions. So say, you may like this as well. And so they can then, pick and change and say, well, I like the dining table, I like the dining chairs, but I don't like the light. So then we'll just choose another light. So we try and make it very easy online as well to facilitate that.
You've leveraged the power of social media and having a large following to help figure out the product mix that you display, which is definitely a unique thing. See, with prop tech, what I tend to find is you've got a lot of tech people attacking the space, and tech people aren't necessarily the best designers.
Yeah.
Sometimes very complicated feature sets. And then you've got the real estate pure side, which is about, getting things done quickly and putting buildings up. And what seems to be missing a lot of the time is the experience. See, prop tech, which is real estate technology at its core, is about many different themes. And one of the themes that I think is essential is the experience. How we interact with physical real estate and what we do definitely comes down to internal atmosphere. And furnishings make a huge impact. I was thinking, this is my place right now. And it was completely bare when we walked in. And when I first came in, this place was staged marvelously, right? Put a lot of pressure on me to, act quicker because I thought, this is beautiful. What if someone else sees this?
Yeah.
And when I inherited the place, it was completely bare and empty. And that's when I realized, wow, it takes a lot of work to make a place really feel like an extension of who you are and represent you. So it's interesting to see that's the approach you're taking with Ruba.
Absolutely.
Now, how do you scale this? How do you go out and get customers? Your designs are marvelous, like I said, and that's why, disclosure, I've invested in Ruba too. And how do you grow the company then? What is it next that you need to do?
Well, we're very much based on collaborations. That's our absolute aim. We feel like having a collaboration and having the different ranges with certain influencers, for example, is really paramount to what we believe as a company, but also how we want to grow. So, what we want to obviously do now, and as you'll see in the next couple of months, we're very excited about getting some incredible influencers on board. And, for them, it's very impersonal. It's their home. They're inviting, 500,000 people into their home, and they want to make it something that they're proud of. So for us now to then say, okay, well, we want you to be proud of your home because of Ruba. It has an emotional impact on that. And then what we want is people to really say, okay, wow, I love that home. Where do I get it from? And I really love the person because I respect them as an influencer, blah, blah, blah. So that's where we come involved. As we obviously move forward, I don't want to disclose everything, but it's definitely something that we're looking for is to really partner with fashion brands and to understand how can we become the fashionable element of interior design. And I've been in interior design for a long time. I've been in it for 20 years. But what I believe is that the interior design and furniture industry is not yet as fashionable as you would say fashion is. There is something missing here. And I think that our brand, what we want to do is make some noise and say, well, no, your fashion is your home. And it starts from the home. So partnering with people that A, believe that, and B, want to portray that powerful message with our furniture is really paramount in our growth.
So this has obviously been accentuated by COVID, and people are now working from home. They're starting to look around, and they're having more time to spend on thinking through their home. This may be their office.
Yeah.
As people start to work from home, there's less separation between your working life and your personal life. How do you think about the trend of work from home and how that relates to interior design and where Ruba sits?
Well, I mean, of course, naturally, with the devastation of COVID, everyone is working from home remotely now. And I think as you look at a lot of, even Barclays said that in the UK, they do not want to, bring their 7,000 workforce back into offices. So you're looking at, unfortunately for real estate, which I don't know.
By the way, it's the same here too with Google as well. So you don't have to come back to offices for a year. And, globally, some of the largest companies are basically saying, in the absence of a vaccine, we're going to at least extend another 12 months, which is going to have a dramatic impact on how people live and work.
But also for the landlords, of those people owning the office space, what's going to happen to those people, to the landlords and the owners of property? And I think, obviously that's a really big discussion. Potentially it will move into more residential or specialist venues, but also for the restaurants and the bars and the cafes surrounding the work areas, which relied on that in terms of, getting their customers from the offices after work. So that's obviously a huge point of that, which we obviously have to understand. But going back into the working from home remotely, yes, of course, that is definitely what's happening. I think it's definitely, as you said, it's going to happen for a long time now. From an interior design perspective, the most important thing, and obviously I work as well, from home as well. So the most important thing now is to understand a work-life balance. And it comes down to, where do you want your office space? Where do you want to work from? I think if you were to, for example, put your office space in the dining table or in the living room, it can, for example, cause that problem with the balance between working and obviously, not working. If you were, for example, after work to finish and you're sitting in the same place, it's unbalancing. So I think from an interior design perspective, get a desk. If you have space, always, get that desk. And also there are beautiful desks online, beautiful desks, and just have that little corner which has a desk, a beautiful, comfortable office chair. Obviously comfort is really important when we work, especially from a computer all the time. And just create a little zen space so that you can, when you go into work, you feel in your home that you actually are in your little office, and you can have your time away from being maybe also around potentially your children or potentially around other people in your home. And so you can differentiate the work life and home life balance.
Yeah, and it's a major consideration for landlords too, especially thinking about tenants coming back. Some offices are now subletting some of their space as storage facilities.
Yeah.
We're very concerned about in the future. You've got Amazon also taking up a lot of retail space as storage. Storage is going to be a very big theme. But moving back to the office, I've written about this, I've done podcasts on this. Landlords are going to have to rethink the office space itself.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to have an employee commute, right? Which is a frustration and a safety hazard in today's world.
Yeah.
All the way to an office and lose out on the flexibility that they have. And, to sit at a desk, you're going to have to rethink the environment in the office to make it a safe place, and as much outdoor areas as possible, communal areas, although they may be unused initially because of safety concerns with crowding. You've got to rethink the actual space and realize that people now are tasting what it's like to work from home.
Yeah.
Studies have come out showing that more and more people are actually not only more productive, but they're enjoying working from home.
Yes.
McKinsey's a great leader in this too, publishing great research. So that's going to have profound implications on real estate itself.
Yeah.
Now, one thing in real estate that's a big trend is home automation and smart homes. And I'm curious, as a designer, you're sitting in the middle of everything here. You're sitting in the middle of, running an e-commerce platform, designing your own furniture brands. What do you think about technology inside of homes? What's your philosophical view, Ella?
It's always an interesting one, this. People ask me, and obviously it's, from a design versus technology perspective and traditional elements of it. Well, primarily my focus, if you think about it, technology, it's helpful to the older generations. And I know that sounds ironic because our older generations don't tend to use technology. But if you think about it, well, okay, for example, back in the day, we used to sell, and we were the first adopters of this, you could fill the bath up from your phone, or you could turn the lights on from your phone, or you could put your alarm on from your phone, or, all that type of stuff. And from a safety perspective, obviously that's very important, but also for people who are not necessarily very, agile, it's easy, it's there. You've got also the robots, vacuum cleaners. So you personally, if you, potentially have hurt yourself or you're not necessarily able to walk around the house, you've got the robots that obviously clean and vacuum and everything. So yes, I mean, we have to understand that technology is of course going to grow and not necessarily take over, but always be a part of our lives now. So
what's your favorite? What's your favorite home automation or smart home device? What are you really fond of? What do you think is actually really useful and you're a fan of?
Well, there's a roll-away TV.
Roll-away TV,
TV, which I always find myself amusing about. But actually, I mean, if you think about it, it's quite useful, right? Because not everyone has space for a huge, 100-inch TV in their room, and they're very expensive nowadays as well. So, okay, you could have projectors and stuff, but for example, if you're having guests around or you have space and you just want to make space for it, to have a movie night or something, have a roll-away TV. I'm down for that.
Yeah, some large homes even have actual cinemas inside.
Yeah.
So, the spectrum is out there. You're always limited by the space that you have. Do you think we have too much technology in our homes? Are you worried about this?
It's a very interesting question. I always love this question. And I think from a perspective of jobs, of course, because installation is huge in terms of employment. We can't automate that yet. Installation in terms of actually installing and refurbishing your home, kitchens, bathroom, electricity, technicalities of plumbing and everything. Will it happen in the future? I do think so. I think my dad thought so. I think robots will actually come in and redo and refurbish your home. And obviously in terms of employment, that's going to really suffer. So I think in terms of employment, it's tough. Technology is definitely going to move forward, as well as also, people who maybe came in and changed a light bulb or something for you, or you call your landlord and then they bring in the service agency to ensure that the radiator works and things like that. Well, no, I think in the future that will be technology, and we have to also understand that there's an employment impact on that. But
in my view, the status quo is not acceptable. It's so hard to find good vendors that it's off-putting to actually go out and buy furniture and buy technology. Google's leading the space now and has actually partnered with a variety of companies to help offer installation. And it's becoming more and more common. I think COVID has really helped here. Large furniture stores as well are now forwarding you and recommending you go and use an on-demand service like Lug or TaskRabbit or Thumbtack or whatever it may be. And that's a positive step. Before, I think a barrier to adopting new furniture and new technology was the actual installation itself. Mm-hmm. So I do think where we're heading with the on-demand workforce, so to speak, as an avenue for installation is big. But how about this? What about returns? I mean, you run a furniture brand, you run an e-commerce company, and it's a big headache. You can't just turn up with a massive table or sofa at your local UPS store, right? Yeah. That's not feasible. So how does that work right now, and how should it work in the future? Do you have any thoughts on delivery and returns?
Well, in terms of, for example, people returning it, in terms of people returning it. Yeah. So I think
it's a headache. I've tried it. It's a headache.
I mean, luckily in Ruba, we have not very many returns. So yay for that. But in terms of course, as you grow, you're always going to have returns. We try to make it as easy as possible. Obviously, we would obviously go and collect the sofa, collect whatever it is.
You would collect and get rid of sofas, because that's right. You've got to remember this. You might show me a wonderful sofa. Well, I've got a sofa already. I need to dispose of it. Actually, the all-in costs of getting someone to come in, pick up this sofa, they have to have insurance, then they have to dispose of it, then they have to, order a new sofa and install it. There's a lot more that goes on than, I like that sofa, let me take it.
Well,
so
actually...
Do you do that?
Yeah. So in Ruba, we've just launched a membership, and essentially a part of that membership is sustainability. And what we do is we take away the old sofa. So it doesn't have to be Ruba, it could be someone else's sofa. And we take it away for free, as long as you're part of the membership, and we actually donate it to charities. So we are not putting, into a waste, we're not putting into a waste fill. And charities obviously are really thankful for that. And we are so happy that we can actually, not dispose of something and put it into a landfill. We can actually make use of it. So that's something that we do, and people really have high feedback on that. And at the same time, we will then deliver the sofa. So hassle-free.
Right, because look, my assumption here is that as we do more and more shopping online, we are going to be... There's a lot of barrier here, because if I order something and it arrives at my home and it may have been free delivery, it ain't free delivery to send it back. Yeah. Usually, at least from my experience, the small print says, I've argued at the UPS store about this, right? Well, I had free delivery. Why do I have to pay when this furniture came damaged? So my assumption is, as more and more people buy things online, shift away from the offline physical stores and showrooms to taking a punt, taking a bet that I like what I see on this website. I can't feel it, I can't smell it, I can't touch it, but I want this.
Yeah.
The output of that will be a lot of unhappy customers, because it doesn't beat seeing it in physical real world. So there'll be more returns. Is that true, firstly? The more online component you have, the higher the return component will be.
Well, it goes back to the concept that you can't have every single sofa or furniture in your store. It's just not feasible. So yes, we had stores obviously now going into e-commerce. So our feedback from that was, well, sometimes obviously they saw another sofa in store and they got a sofa from the catalogue and they didn't like it. And so of course there's still going to be returns on that. It's not necessarily different to it is now. Yes, you can't go into a store and see something similar and touch and feel it. But what we do is we offer free complimentary samples, fabric samples. So people get that through the post. And then from then they go, okay, well, yes, we like the feel of it. We like the quality of it. And the other thing with sofas, I'm not sure about you, but people go, okay, it's in my house now. I hope I want to like it. It's almost like I need to like it, because the hassle, as you said, from their perspective of moving it out, well, it's almost more than it is just to keep it. So what we do is we say, are you happy? Are you happy with the sofa? And they say, yeah, we are. And so from then on, okay, we understand that, we just need to understand the consumer.
So what you're saying is that this issue of returns isn't necessarily a new issue, that when someone goes to a showroom or furniture store, they may decide not to take what's in store, but in the catalogue itself.
Exactly.
So this is the visual problem that the industry has been dealing with.
Absolutely.
Whereas now we're shifting from everything being online, for in the case of Aruba, right, rather than physical stores.
But the other thing for that is what we're doing is now trying to put AR on our site so that you can actually physically see your sofa in the room, in your room.
So what, use mobile technology to sort of place a product? I know Amazon offers this too.
Exactly. So you can almost go around your room with your phone and you can actually place your sofa in there. At the same time, what we want to do is put on our website a floor plan. So you can put in easily the dimensions of your room. So 3 meters by 2 meters or whatever it is, it will create that instantly for you. And you can literally drop and put each of our furniture pieces into the room to see exactly how, first of all, the dimensions will be in your room, so to see it will fit, and second of all, it will go into a 3D image, and so therefore you can see exactly how it will look in your room. So those are the things that even in when we had a showroom, you had to pay for a design service to actually physically see the room, your room with the furniture in it. So now what we're doing is saying, no, you can do it for free online. So actually giving more of an understanding of what the furniture would look like in your home rather than actually going to a store.
I see. So that's basically where the future is heading, clearly.
Yeah, definitely.
This is how the world is going to look. We've transitioned from offline now, more and more online. The late adopters who didn't want to do any shopping online had no choice, because you go to the furniture store, and now this is where we are. So you're talking about AR. Now, when we talk about AR, it used to be a fad. AR, to me, its most exciting application was literally Pokemon Go. Everything else was just a gimmick. Now you're talking about actually using AR in your own company to let people experience the furniture in their home. Is AR really that impactful, or is it sort of a gimmick right now? Are people using AR functionality?
I think it honestly comes down to the fact that if you're going to look at a sofa and you're going to put it around your room and try and place a sofa in it, well, to be honest, in that situation, potentially not, because you've got a sofa there. So you can't delete what's behind it. You know what I mean? You've got to just almost imagine that it's on top of it, or you've got to remove the entire room to actually see it. Whereas what we want and we feel like is better is, well, no, let's actually redo the entire room of what you think it's going to look like. So actually placing the furniture into our site and moving around the room and seeing, well, actually, no, I want it on this wall, or I want it on that wall. And so, yes, in a sense that not only are you physically seeing what it's going to look like, but at the same time, you're saying, okay, it's going to fit. Because sometimes not everyone are designers, and they can't. It's hard. It is hard to go, okay, well, would this corner sofa fit here? Or, is it too tight with the dining room? Well, place it into what we're going to have online, and we'll do it instantly for you. So you can say, okay, great, it's going to fit. I'm happy.
So you talked about how technology might result in the automation of installation. You might not need actual workers. You might have robots doing the installation for you, and somehow even delivery one day. What about interior designers? Where do interior designers sit in the future? Before, the value of an interior designer was obviously a good fit. They had access to trade discounts.
Yeah.
And they were able to procure furniture that you wouldn't otherwise have access to.
Yeah.
Now, where do you see the interior design industry heading, given that you were an interior designer yourself? And technology might automate a lot of the interior design process. For example, even measuring the furniture and making sure furniture A matches furniture B is the expertise of an interior designer. What's your take on that?
Well, actually, that's part of the reason that we decided to go into Ruba. Because honestly, interior designers, you're looking at the top 5%, for example, of homes that need and want and can spend that amount of money. It's such a luxury concept now to have an interior designer, and I think that's where it's heading further and further, because of the fact that unless you're wanting the entire room done, which potentially in the future Ruba will be able to do anyway, unless you're wanting the entire room done from wallpaper to, even like the trims around the doors, like literally all those details. Yes, you need an interior designer if you're willing to pay for that, and you want, the absolute beautiful definition of every detail. Yes, of course, you need an interior designer for that. But looking at the percentage of people who honestly now can afford that, want that, it takes quite a long time to go through that process. It's diminishing at the top. So more and more people are just honestly wanting to see what's online and shop online because it's ease. So in terms of the concept of an interior designer, I think obviously it will be very much in terms of technicality. So working with developments, working with, high-rise buildings, working with architectures to property developments and stuff like that. And also the top couple of percentage who want to blow it out the water and have the most beautiful home, but don't want to spend the time looking through the internet and also have the money to do that.
Go forward in the future, if it's possible to automate the installation of an item, then surely AI should be able to replace a lot of what interior designers do.
Absolutely.
Now, is that a reality that we're going to see in 5 or 10 years, or do you think it's far, far beyond that? And as an interior designer, it's easy for me as an outsider, right, to speculate, but you know the ins and outs of the trade. Is it something that's going to see massive disruption in the next 5 or 10 years, or is it far, far out?
Yeah, I do think so. I think that's a really interesting point. And I think that what we want to do is be able to say, okay, fill out this form, or I don't know, put a few questions, or even not even that. We understand the consumer as soon as they land on our site, and we say, okay, this is what we think your home should look like. And then from then they're like, oh, wow, like they understand what I want. But it's not me doing it, it's the back end. It's saying, well, you love this style, you love this color, you love this shapes, you love gold textures, not silver textures, you love marble. Here's your room. Because they know exactly what the consumer wants. And so that's going to definitely, I think, play about in the future.
Right. And if we can capture the emotional aspect of real estate is very logical, actually, especially on the private equity side where I sit, where we buy real estate. It really is about the numbers, but we're forgetting that there are human beings involved, and this is sometimes the biggest purchase in someone's life.
Yeah.
Or, if you have rentals, it's still a big deal. And what makes the rental work is obviously your location, but also the emotional attachment. So if you get the furniture right, if you can create the experience, it can be huge. Now, I've seen a lot of home ownership and co-living startups emerge, and a lot of their differentiation tends to be, we have beautiful furniture inside, and we've inked a special deal with a manufacturer or a designer. And so, yes, this building is the same as every other building everywhere you look, but we've curated it inside, and we've packaged furniture, and we offer a higher standard of living. What's your thoughts on this new era of startups that are emerging, that are focusing on the internal experience and partnering with other brands? You're a brand yourself.
Yeah, I think it's clever. I think a lot of people are doing it nowadays, as you said. I think it's become the standard almost now that, people who want to rent desire that type of furniture. So we need to obviously understand the market out there. People who, nowadays, obviously, I read an article the other day that young people are much more likely to rent than they are to buy because of the risks associated with purchasing because of the COVID situation. So yes, they're going to want to rent, within these companies and within these houses and flats. What are they looking for? Well, because they're so, it's so available nowadays in terms of what's beautiful furniture online. Well, they're looking for that. They're looking for that in their homes. And at the same time, they're probably very busy people. So they don't want to go and buy it and purchase it and put it in their homes. So yeah, I think it's we almost need to do it. Otherwise, you just won't get those types of people wanting to rent in those houses or those flats anymore. But I think there also needs to be a differentiating point between, the people out there and the companies doing it. If everyone's doing the same thing with the certain types of furnishings, how do you differentiate yourself? So maybe it's the type of style that you're after. Maybe some people absolutely love modern, and that's their go-to. Some people love traditional. Some people love retro, minimalist, farmhouse. So is it a style that potentially could differentiate yourself, and then people have more options and more available and more, scope to go, well, actually, that's my style. That's not necessarily my style. It's nice, but I'll choose that.
Right. So, Ella, you're now trying to grow the company. Any questions you have for me? Any ways I can help you?
Always. I've always got questions for you, Zain. I think let's start with the first one. I mean, in terms of COVID at the moment, I know you're now investing, and that's what you're looking for. In terms of the COVID situation, do you feel like the concept of investing has changed? Do you feel like as an investor, what you're looking for has changed? And what advice do you have for people looking for investment nowadays?
Well, I'll give you the investor perspective first. If you already have an existing startup portfolio, most likely there are going to be some very, very distressed companies in that portfolio.
Yeah.
A lot of companies have been impacted. You look at the public markets right now, and the markets had an amazing recovery. What you're missing is that the recovery has been skewed with large companies. Large companies have done very, very well. Yeah. It's the small cap and startup companies that are not well positioned that are in danger.
Yeah.
I mean, we have record unemployment rates, GDP is contracted, the economy is suffering right now. So existing investors that have startup portfolios are probably going to see a larger proportion of startups not make it. Startups are very fragile. They're babies, God bless. Yes. Very vulnerable, right? Resilient as they are, they can be very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And some of these assets will not survive. However, if you're an investor and you don't have an existing portfolio yet, it's an amazing time to invest. If a startup or a company is being launched right now, they're thinking about the world very differently than an existing larger player.
Definitely.
A new startup is going to be thinking about constraints differently. COVID is a reality. And so they're building their company in a very different way than an existing company trying to pivot and trying to, refocus. And then obviously there are certain themes, and if you're a startup investor and you're diversified, hopefully you've got exposure to things like health tech or, software that facilitates work. And I think to be seen for the future, prop tech. Prop tech's going to be a huge industry, but property tech does move slow. And COVID has forced the acceleration of new technologies. So I think that's the case. As an entrepreneur, if you are running a company, you better have an answer for how COVID is going to help you. By default, I expect any company that comes to me to, if they're raising funding, it shouldn't be as a defense. It should be as an offense. COVID now is going to force the adoption of technologies that were going to be adopted already. Now they're just going to be adopted faster. Those are the companies that are going to do very, very well. And part of my investment theme as well is to look for companies that will sit on the intersection of all the major trends. COVID is forcing trends to happen. And I think this is one of the good things that will come out of COVID. A lot of bad things have come out, but I think positive good things will come out.
Definitely. And I suppose moving on from that, if someone right now was thinking of starting their own business and in the industry of prop tech or properties, what would you advise them? What would you advise them right now if they were to start that?
Right now is the best time in the world to start a company. They ask usually, when is the right time to buy a house? It's a question I've been asking for a long time. And the answer is no. Now's a good time. Yeah. But for prop tech specifically, this is the best. I started a company in the advertising technology field. Terrible time now to start a company. When I started it was the best time because the app revolution was happening. Yeah. Prop tech is ready for disruption. It's such a fragmented base. Technology hasn't been adopted yet. And the whole nature of real estate has completely changed, turned upside down on its head because of the pandemic. Because of this, everyone is rethinking things like, how do we buy real estate? How do we experience the real estate itself? And this presents a world of opportunity for the new startup entrepreneur out there. I firmly believe the next $1 trillion plus company will come from the prop tech space, and a wonderful time really to be going ahead and starting.
That's really interesting. And for those potentially, obviously, you've got bigger players and you have smaller players, and those potentially who now have a lot of property or even a small amount of property, who were renting out to office spaces or even the high street showrooms, who now have become, or even like Barclays, who are not, or Google, who obviously Google have their own, they own their own spaces. But say, for example, you're renting out the office spaces. What do you suggest or what do you advise? Is there anything you advise people who, are struggling now because they don't have any tenants?
Yeah, it's a tough question. We're all wondering, how do we return to work safely and in a sustainable way? It's a tough time to be an office landlord. However, I remain optimistic. I do think remote work has a place, but I don't think it needs to be binary. I don't think it needs to be, I either work from home or I work in the office. There can be a hybrid approach where perhaps people go to the office in the morning and they leave later on, or they go to the office in the early stages of a project and they do the execution remotely. So I do think an office has a place. I think we're right in the midst of chaos, absolute chaos right now. And it's very hard to see the forest from the trees. But like anything, I think Real estate's very enduring. It's long term. The economic fundamentals are right there. You've got population growth. You will have a bounce back from the unemployment rate that we're seeing today, which was artificial. It was caused by a pandemic. This economic engine will restart globally. So I do think offices have their place, but it's not going to be the same as it is today. Now, for the landlord struggling, that's a tough one. And landlords have to be willing to adapt. They're going to have to rethink what it means to have a tenant improvement budget. You're going to have to invest in the space. Tenants are going to demand a lot more from landlords too. Tenants, especially corporate office tenants, want to see a focus on sustainability. They're going to want to see benchmark reports and sustainability reports. They're going to want to make sure that they have a clean environment inside, which isn't cluttered. There was this trend before where we were packing people in spaces. And this densification trend, as it's called, is now reversing. We went from, at best 250 square foot per employee now to 150 square feet. That's change in game. And so companies and offices have to think about how they really comply with the guidelines, how they allow a space where there's more space per employee, even if that means a higher cost for the space per square foot. And in their view, perhaps less productivity per square feet, because they're measuring productivity by, the old cubicle approach. You cram people in. And, I think also newer buildings are going to do much better than older buildings. Older buildings are going to be in need of a refurbishment. And I think something we take for granted is air pollution. And having air filtration technology, air purifiers and such devices are going to be very important, because go back to this. If I'm working from home, why should I go to the office? Before it was, if I don't go to the office, I'm going to be fired. Now, if I go to the office, I could very well spread the coronavirus, be infected, expose a loved one. I have to give up the flexible working hours that I have now, where I can spend time with my family, children, and friends, and I can work in my own pace in my own home. There's a lot. You are back into sales mode if you're an office landlord, right? You're trying to convince employees to return back to work. It better be enticing. Cannot be the same old, same old.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing you say that. And I think the evolution of how we work and the concept of the office is definitely going to change. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But again, I think obviously, as you said, the human interaction, it needs to be there somewhat, if not, obviously not all the time. Nowadays, obviously we can't, but, definitely there needs to be an element of that. So it's so interesting to hear you say that.
I think this is where the benefit is for startups, though, because there's always been this assumption, and I had this assumption too, although I ran a company that had 8 offices around the world and hundreds of employees. Why do you need to go to your office? You can save so much cost if you don't have a physical office as a startup. I think offices are needed, especially for large corporations or certain companies. But as a startup, why do you need the overhead of a physical office when you're starting up? Why do you have to go hire expensive engineers in Silicon Valley or New York or wherever you may be? You can hire great talent anywhere in the world, as long as you invest in the initial infrastructure. And it's not much, really, to have good internet, to have good video conferencing technology will allow startups to operate in a more leaner way and cut costs down. And this is a very exciting time for a startup in that way. Costs can be lower to start.
Definitely. And I think that's where we started with Ruba as well. We want to always be lean. And obviously, we started without an office, and we're going to keep it that way. And we understand remote working. So, yeah, I think that's really interesting.
It's your culture, it's your DNA.
Yeah.
It's very different if you're a large company and you've been used to having people work in the office and have endless meetings after meetings. Very different if you're a startup and your DNA is built like this. It's actually a competitive advantage. Believe it or not, being able to work remotely is a source of competitive advantage versus existing companies that are used to working in person. I think there's a place for in person. I'm not the death of offices at all. And I don't think I think work from home and remote work isn't necessarily going to be the primary way people work, but it will be a hybrid approach.
But it's interesting to say that as well, because, when we had employees in obviously the showrooms and everything, it was very much like, okay, people came and they worked from 9 to 5, but actually how much productivity did they have during that point? It was very much like you sat at your desk from 9 to 5 and that meant you were working, you were getting paid for that. But actually when we went, now we are obviously remote, it's actually like, no, well, you can work 9 to 10 if you want, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. But how much work are you going to get done? And so it's the productivity of that, which is, I think, really vital, which potentially wasn't there before.
You've got certain companies even thinking about the 4-day work week.
Yeah.
And, gone are the endless debates about what is the maternity policy and paternity policy we provide. Well, it's so easy now. I mean, you can work remotely and you can adjust and you can figure it out. I remember being in meetings at a startup that I founded. We were always thinking about how do we create policies and how do we create policies that are fair? And how do you create policies that are fair across different geographies? Right? When you're a startup, you might have one office that's your HQ. You may have another office where you've got a smaller footprint and it's primarily only one function like sales. And then again, another office that is shared, co-tenancy, it's in a co-living or co-working environment. So how do you create policies that are fair and flexible? Much easier if you've got a distributed global remote workforce.
Absolutely. Sure. And I suppose the other question is, because obviously as a startup, as a business, you're always going to overcome obstacles and challenges. What's your advice for entrepreneurs and people in startups who, obviously are going through those challenges and obstacles?
Look, obstacles need to be reframed. I like the word challenges more. And I like the word opportunity even more. A challenge, an obstacle is an opportunity for you to build a competitive moat or advantage. I'm assuming the challenge obstacle that you come across is one that is hopefully relevant to other players in your ecosystem. So if you're running a company and you encounter a challenge, I always see this as exciting. If you can get around this and you can build a solution that's elegant through technology, guess what? You've got a source of competitive advantage now. So don't be dismayed when you come across a problem or a challenge. The way of dealing and the psychology of dealing with a challenge is one about mindset. And there's two separate mindsets here. You've got peacetime CEO and you've got wartime CEO. You've got to be wartime CEO or wartime leader when challenges and obstacles emerge. This is the time to get very logical, very rational and get data, and also to be quite autocratic. You've got to have a flexible leadership style. And this is one where you've actually got to be the one that makes the shots. You, as the leader of a company, have a complete holistic view. And if there are other people that have a view that you don't have because they're sit in a certain position, get them to the table. Bring in the best people you can to the room. Bring in stakeholders, but have the team be lean and appoint one clear leader to lead the task force, right? And give them the authority to make decisions. So when we encounter challenges, we'd have war rooms. We'd have task forces.
Really? Amazing.
We'd have someone from finance and someone from sales and someone from engineering sit there and get this done. And literally, this is the one time where you need to work and get it done. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And if you're in the office, it needs to be, these times everyone needs to be available to sync. Otherwise, remove all burdens, remove all bureaucracy, allow people to communicate and let decisions be made quickly. As a CEO of a company, if you're dealing with a challenge right now, my advice would be, throw all the rules out and remove obstacles for your team as they deal with the adversity or challenge of the day right now. And this is crazy to say, but our company had so many challenges or opportunities in the early days that we became so good. It was like whatever hit us, it's like, okay, here's another challenge. Yeah. You almost put a workflow inside your company for dealing with crisis. Definitely. And dealing with crisis and dealing with it well can mean how quickly you can get out of a deadly death grip, vice grip situation. It's your ability to get out of bad situations that can result in your success. Yeah. As much as getting lucky and capitalizing on success, it's getting out of danger. Whilst your competitors ponder and have meeting after meeting and get, sink into that quicksand of lethargy as you're fast and nimble and you're sprinting. and you're winning.
I think honestly that's amazing to hear you say that, because it really is. How do you face battle almost differently to your competitors, and if you can beat them on that, then you're a step ahead. So that's really, and I suppose moving on from that, I mean, can you tell us about one of the biggest risks that you took and why, and was that to do with a challenge that you faced, an opportunity that you wanted to obviously come across?
Yeah, I like when I hear the word risk as an entrepreneur, the first thing I'm conditioned to reply back is calculated risks.
Yeah.
There's always this perception that entrepreneurs take, wild, reckless risks. Now, I don't want to give you a boring answer. I could tell you about all the calculated risk I took, and a risk that actually worked out, and a dangerous risk. And just like every movie starts with disclaimer, don't try this at home. The disclaimer I put on this is warning entrepreneurs, do not try this in your startup. I got very lucky, and I'm lucky it worked for me. We had 6 months of cash left. We weren't even actually collecting cash, by the way. We were booking revenue, but we weren't even collecting cash. So we had good unit economics, but we had a cash crunch, and we were going to go bankrupt. And we'd already raised what I thought was a large $2 million Series A round. And having raised this large $2 million Series A round, seed round, $2 million seed round, I suddenly realized we hadn't raised enough. And we had 6 months left, time has passed, and I made a bold decision. Sat around, and everyone around the table was saying, okay, here's how we can extend our burn rate. Here's how we can cut burn from 6 months to 12 months. I said, what about the opposite? What if we double our burn? What if we take our burn from 6 months to 3 months? And everyone's horrified around the room, and I don't blame them now. Looking at it in a more rational way. But my view was I had such belief and such confidence in my company that I felt this is the time to get through that light that's about to go red. Yeah. Hell, actually, we're already stuck on the intersection, right? This is not the time to crawl along when there's bullets flying by you. This is the time to step on the metal and accelerate. And so we doubled our burn. We started hiring more people. We started increasing our marketing spend. And we went out on a blazing trail trying to raise financing. And it was risky. And you have to have a lot of confidence and commit to the strategy. And I did. I doubled down, accelerated burn, and we had this hockey stick growth as a result. And we ended up raising a $6 million Series A. We had a venture debt deal lined up in case that didn't pan out. So it was $6.5 million in total. And it was exhilarating and scary and reckless too. If any startup came to me for advice, as an investor, most likely I'd be saying whatever around the table said. Extend your burn, be very careful, manage your burn. But when I wore the entrepreneur hat, I had such confidence, just absolute confidence that it was going to work, that I did it and it did work. I'd say I got lucky. But had I not done that, Ella, I don't think we would have had the metrics to raise money. And I think competitors would have overtaken us. And we wouldn't have been the company that we were, the company that sold for $780 million to Blackstone. All of these headlines may be great, but no one sees the early journey a startup is on, and those calamitous situations that come, and the decisions you make early in the days will impact you later on. And those decisions will seem so small when you think, oh, I only had X amount of cash left in the bank. One day when you're printing money and you're turning over millions of dollars, maybe even on a daily basis, as was the case with the Harrods. It's crazy. That's when you'll realize, like, wow, that problem stressed me out. Now, in just 6 hours, I've come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, because the machine is turning, the startup's making money whilst you sleep. Early days, you're making investments for $20,000, $30,000 a piece. You're running out of money. Later on, you're crushing it. It's crazy.
But
think about startups.
It's an amazing story. But look at it now. Obviously, it paid off. And I think you can see like the confidence and the absolute belief that you had in Fungal at that time made the success that it is, and the success that you sold it for. Like it's just that's what people believe in, and that's where obviously like it came from, because the confidence that you have is just amazing.
Confidence is everything, and I'm a little bit spiritual here, but I believe what you think in your mind materializes in reality. And if your worldview and your frame is so strong, you will move mountains. You will make competitors, recede. You will hire the best people, and you will build a magnificent company.
100%. I could not agree more with that. I think 100%. I think it's all about manifesting and understanding what to do. But yeah, I suppose the last question is, where do you find your biggest inspiration? That's my last question to you.
When I started off, my biggest inspiration still today comes from when I'm zoned out, I'm relaxed. I'll try to meditate, I'll fail because I came up with a great idea.
That is amazing. I do that. Yeah.
Or you're having a shower, or when I'm really obsessed about something, I'll actually dream about it too.
Yeah.
And that's where things really happen. As I've evolved, though, I've learned that this is only one channel of inspiration, and it can be dangerous. You must validate everything. If most companies are at a stage where you can validate things with customers. So go to customers, go to advisors, and use that as inspiration. The most practical progress comes when inspiration comes from inspired problems, especially problems that customers have that you can talk to them about and you can build around that. So that is how I would answer it today. In the past, it was when I was dozing off and in La La Land, I'd have all these crazy ideas. Now it's when I'm wearing my, experienced entrepreneur hat, I go talk to customers and I validate things. And now, sitting on the investor side, I'll tell you something, ideas are cheap. There are a lot of people working on great companies and great ideas. And if you think you're early, you're probably not. You need to be paranoid and you need to assume the startup idea you're working on, there are many people around the world working on it right now at the same time. And I can see this as an investor. I get to see ideas that are magnificent. And then I'll see other companies that also seem to be working on similar things too. And it's how you see the overall landscape. It's about execution. It's not about ideas. And the difference in success or execution goes back to customers. You might have this really great idea. It'll never get off the ground if you don't validate it with customers. Go validate it with customers. And the company that does will be the one that gets a logo on their deck. Critical to raising money, get a logo on your deck. Logos on your deck, preferably, right?
Yeah.
Real customers versus this is a big market. This is a great idea. Believe in me. I'm confident. Well, you're confident, but you're also a maniac because you're not taking the required steps. You're in denial.
Yeah.
Go prove it. Go get customers. Then you're not a maniac. Then you're a genius.
That's really interesting. I 100% agree with that. I also think it's also about, as you said, go and validate your ideas. But if you and someone else is validating your ideas, don't give up. Determination, right? If someone else is doing it, well, they might fall at the 5th hurdle. But,
Right, and, going back to prop tech here, there's no excuse if you're a prop tech entrepreneur to not get on LinkedIn, to literally go on social media, to call everyone you know and ask for an introduction to an apartment owner or an insurance broker or a real estate agent, whoever your customer segment is. Go out and talk to people. And often you'll find, especially in real estate, people are so busy making money that there's no incentive to innovate. And so they're not looking at technology all the time. And so it's refreshing. You're doing them a favor when you talk to them about your idea, your company. Yeah. You're doing them a favor because you're enriching their perspective.
Definitely.
And that to me is, no excuse. If you're in prop tech and you're an entrepreneur, you've got to go out and talk to customers.
Definitely. 100% agree.
This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see the progress you make.
Thank you.
Company. Thank you for
doing
this.
It's an absolute honor.
Want to take your business to the next level? You're in the right place. Zain Jaffer interviews legendary entrepreneurs, investors, and leading executives. Gain deeper clarity, insight, and motivation, and achieve more in your life, both professionally and beyond. Zain sold his Silicon Valley startup Vungle to Blackstone for a whopping $780 million in 2019. Now, his purpose is bringing you the very best business advice, and he leaves no stone unturned.